All right, guys. So, um, this is me. Welcome back to another video. I hope that y'all have had a great week. On this week's video, I have brought on with me Brandon Hennis, and for today's video, we are going to talk about his sensory needs and how he got those sensory needs. We will be discussing kind of the research behind his um, sensory and his development, and we will also be talking about a little info card that he will be carrying around with him. Um, Discussing his needs and things to that nature. Just to give you all a heads up, his voice is a little blah, so he will be using an AI generated clip of himself. Or
Well,
yeah.
not a clip. It's. I'm using RVC voice changer, which is actually providing a more cleaner copy of my voice. So, it'll say it still sounds like me. In fact, I think Nesma can confirm that. I think it still sounds like me enough, though, that people should be able to tell it's me talking.
Mm-hmm. So, um, I've done. Please also uh ignore my NVDA. It's gonna be NVDA. Um, actually, I
Well, it tries to be anyway.
so
It.
I have done share. So kind of the this first um thing is talking about like his what the medication is. It's called breathine, and that his mom needed it to
Yeah, to kind of give a little background into this, the first trimester of my mom's pregnancy, she almost miscarried. And this is the medicine that what's on display right now, which you're seeing on the screen, is basically a description of what the medicine does, but also its side effects, what can actually happen when the side effects take place. And this doesn't just affect the sensory, but this also affects things like neurological processing. There's even a little bit to kind of be said for the underdevelopment that I was born with, the missing brain hemispheres, the left middle ear structure missing, the heart murmurs, the hole in the heart at birth. All these different factors, which I know those aren't listed on the screen, but those just add to what you see on the display, talking about what breathing or its other generic name, terbutaline, also can cause. Back to Nesma in the booth.
so this section that I've scrolled to right now is basically showing like how his needs are one important, and two how like it's common for individuals with autism to have these needs. Let me figure out what happened to my real quick. Okay. How did that happen? Okay. Well, it did what it did, but there's there's that. I hope
There it
that
is.
it didn't go too fast for y'all. Um, in the case,
If it did, please communicate with us via my email at BHS for correction. That's my old email. Try kc0usm at gmail.com and let me know that you want Nesma to send you the full copy of the rich text file that was generated that we put together with this research, which took us quite a while to get done, but you can easily reach out and obtain that, and that'll give you guys a pretty good insight into what we're talking about here.
If y'all have Facebook, I've also posted it as a graphic picture on Facebook. So there's that. So now that we've gone kind of into that, and the screenshot is, or the screen's gonna stay up basically until this meeting ends, but the scrolling will stop at this moment. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your sensory card kind of in comes into this, what it is, and how and where you plan to implement it.
Well, sensory card, just for the sake of the fact that there are new users who probably don't know what a sensory card is, or even a medical support card, whether it's a sensory or disability card, is a card used to show or to notify a public eye, no matter where you are, that you have a what might be referred to as a hidden disability, and that you have specific needs within that disability that you need totally covered, and you need what you need in if certain things occur. If they see certain symptoms, in the case of a sensory disability or sensory processing disorders, what you might need, what she's showing you on screen, talks a little bit about like kind of in vague nature, but I will explain in my case. Among the things that, and this is sort of not the most comforting thing to talk about. I'm going to warn you guys right out of the gate. I sit here, probably was a more embarrassed look on my face, and that you guys don't see me on camera, obviously, but with a look on my face of, oh my God, because we had to go this route due to a massive overrun of stories that were being generated by multiple sources, and some of whom we later found out were being fed information, others were being told certain things were what they weren't, and that kind of created a situation that made things even more difficult than what they should have been. The intention use of that card is to sort of provide insight into the what to do if you see me doing certain gestures. If I depending upon how I'm moving around, and it's all hard to explain some of those gestures. But if I suddenly stop and I'm kind of moving around funny, if I'm standing or if I'm sitting and top half of me is moving, not at all, hardly, but the lower part of me is moving, like I'm squirming a little bit in my seat. That fits a telltale signal. Sensory needs. I have what's called a lower body, lower extremity pulsing sensation that I deal with. That is the result of the sensory issues from the misfire in the nerves, and that is something I've had since I was younger. And so, to combat this, when I know it's going to happen, is I need to basically be wrapped around somebody. Imagine if you're holding a child or what have you, and you place them facing you, and you wrap them around you in a constant hug, and they're pressed to you in that continuous hug. That's the way I have to be. And the sensory card, which we'll give instructions. I won't explain those instructions here because of the simple fact that it'll be on the sensory card when I'm around. And if we ever need to show the sensory card to anybody in a setting online about what to do for their curiosity's sake, should you ever see me in person, or if you ever on a call with me, we'll get to that. We need to. But that's sort of what that is about. The sensory card kind of came into play, as I stated. Really, the objective of the sensory card is to sort of give an explanation of what I have and what needs to be done. For a person with other types of disabilities, those who are stemming, those who are people who have those sensitivity to noise, and they have to wear a noise-canceling headset sometimes during times of noise, it's kind of the same concept. Think of the lap-facing hug, essentially the way you would think of what you would do for a person if they were having a seizure. You would do what you could to provide them the proper pressure contact to help calm them down. Only in this case, we're dealing with, some people could call it like a spasm, but I can't properly or adequately describe it to you the way it did really, unless you're on the experience end of it, you wouldn't have a good idea. And I wouldn't put Nesmith to the trouble of explaining it. She's actually been one who's experienced providing that pressure for me. She knows from experience on her own, and she can tell you that that's, at first when you first experience it, it's a bit different because you're just like, well, what in the world? But then but then when you begin more to become more understanding of things, it's sort of an easier pace of stuff. And let's also probably also, I shouldn't mince words on this either, is that uh, that is widely judged by many, because they think that age dictates sensory needs, and it really doesn't. I know Nesma's got her own share of difficulties, and I'm sure, Nesma, you've heard that argument given thousands of times, that somebody says, oh, well, this doesn't make sense for somebody at this age to have this problem or that problem. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the sensory issues that I have. It could be the it could be issues somebody else has. And you seem to hear that a lot, don't you? That constant argument of, oh, well, why?
Hmm. I mean, I
And it's
grew
a set.
up. I grew up like I have partially lactose intolerant, and I remember going to my family and being like, I think I'm lactose intolerant, and literally having that response of, that only happens to kids. And that was like,
It
no, it doesn't.
would right because people are used to specific things only happening to certain people. And so it really does get frustrating trying to explain it, I guess, in ways that people will fully understand. As time goes, you expect that maybe there'll be that line of understanding, and it's sort of the line that gets drawn. I think the biggest frustration for me is when explaining it to new people who do understand, saying they understand, but then later trading it for I don't understand or this happened to me. And there's only been like 3 people that have done it. Well, 2 actually, more or less. We learned yesterday that one of those 3 that we thought was a part of that appears they were put in a position where they were kind of being fed information that something wasn't that there was no way something could be what it was. There's one particular person who 2 years ago used we've done deep research and we never found anything like this. Well, I'd love to know where they looked. Google is not your only source of medical information, and actually it's never usually the most trusted. In fact, my primary care doctor is quoted as saying, people ought to be careful with using Google as a primary method of searching because they may turn around and look up a small symptom and get the worst case scenario, and that it turned out to be something very small. So, that's the truth. I mean, there's a lot of things not known to medical professionals. I know one of the things, Nesma, you and I talked about is also not only the sensory card, but the idea that the doctor should put it in my medical file, because then that opens up a whole nother avenue where if there's questions, they can say, look, this is what he needs. If he tells you he needs this, here's what. Now, there's the question that many people are going to ask, well, Brandon, you prefer female support, not males. There's a reason for that. I was abused by males a long time, It's a very, very long-standing truth that many of the individuals that know me on a personal level already know. And it's something that can get very, very dicey in explaining. It's very dicey in explaining. So it really does raise a little bit for many. The question they ask is, well, how does this affect you on a day-to-day basis? Well, it's more what it affects me on is the level of judgment that people cast. The fact that people are so quick to cast a judgment that they don't know, and then you sit back and you're basically minding your business trying to explain it to them, but then you realize that in that explanation you've done all you can do, but they still manage to find a way to question what they don't know. And assuredly, you would hope that they can't question it too much, but then you find they do, and it's one of the hardest kind of situations to cope with. And I know that as a person who's been at this a long time, trying to explain to people in simplistic terminology is not easy with this, because since there are so many facets to it, and since it's a very unusual sensory need in that, yes, it's known scientifically, but it's not known enough for doctors to say, oh, we've heard of this before, or this and this and this. Now bring this research into a doctor and guarantee you they'll look at it and go, oh, absolutely, we'll do this. But you never want to discuss that with a doctor without bringing in that kind of research. I can tell you that much right now. I think Nesma knows what I mean, because if you walk into a doctor's office with that and just go, I need you to put the sensory card in there, and there's no research to kind of back up your needs, doctors generally are like, well, how am I supposed to explain that? And still, even with the research, there's, how am I supposed to explain that? And what Nesma wrote up was a shorter version of the sensory card. I've got a few generated text files of a much longer version if ever one is needed. So we've kind of combined our resources with this, and hopefully we've come to a pretty good foregone conclusion that this can be done. But exactly how does the first stage, and then what to do with it is the second stage. And I think that's where this video comes into play, is that we want to try to explain as much of this as possible. I'm surprised Nisma hasn't stopped me for questions. Either that, or I guess she figures that I'm doing so good talking that she doesn't almost need to. I'm not sure which, but the quiet Nesma rolls in. Nesma, do you have any other questions? I mean, or did I pretty well cover them in spade?
I think you did really good. One thing that I thought about doing for y'all, is I'm thinking about putting it in the description. So please, please, please look at the description, because that is where I'm going to put the text version of this, just to make it easier on individuals that are, um, with multiple disabilities, so that, y'all aren't like, man, what's going on? Like, I can't figure out what's going on, whether you're visually impaired or dyslexic or just struggle with
Although,
reading and comprehension and everything else. Yeah.
oh, I just thought about this, and the question about, is there a specific age group of people that are more susceptible to understanding a sensory card like that? Actually, the answer to that is yes. Believe it or not, that is a very sad answer, but that is an answer indeed. People from ages about 20 through 38, 40 years old is about your most understanding age range for some of these people discussing these sensory issues. Now, I've heard of people somewhat older being understanding about it, but that is not generally common. So I want to bear that in mind in case the question came up from any users that impose that. Age-wise, is that that's about the age of people that generally understand, unless somebody's known you long enough that might be a little older that appreciates it. So I know that was a question that had been raised a lot. And because of the compassion, the older you get, it's not that the older you get, the less compassionate you are, but the older you get, sometimes your tolerance for specific needs and things sometimes tends to be a little, for some people, they have that kind of the older we get, the less tolerant we are kind of approach. And except I've always been the one that fought to believe that if you were not tolerant of stuff now, you probably weren't of it then. Before, in some cases, it just really depends on the person and their approach. But it's more or less to raise awareness. The whole point of this video is to raise awareness, get you, well understood to what I deal with on a day-to-day basis, how it affects me, and what we do to take steps to kind of help people understand it. You never know. You could be the next person that experiences what I go through. And as you want to understand it, we are providing you on the description an explanation of exactly what I deal with, what some do for pressure. For me, the only thing that works is human pressure.
And with
Nesva?
that, I would love to wish you all a great night or morning. If you have any
Yeah.
questions, please,
Or afternoon or evening, depending on where you
yeah,
are.
if if anyone has any questions, please write them in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, and to this video, please review the description as I will be posting the text to what I put on screen um here. I hope everyone has a great day,
Indeed,
and I will see you on the next video.
and thank you for letting me be a part of this tonight.
Bye bye.